Come and join us. As folks are rolling in, I'll also remind you that tomorrow from 3:30 to 5, we'll be showing Seeds of Change, Breaking Free from the Food Prison Machine. It chronicles the intersecting stories of lifelong farmer Mark McBride from Maine and several incarcerated men as they harvest their own meals from a 5-acre prison garden that is unlike any other. I believe Annie's going to throw the link to that in the chat. So if you want to sign up for that, please do. We'd love to have you with us tomorrow evening as well. You will also see a link for a Mentimeter. If you want to take a quick minute and do that, just kind of a fun little way to get us started here together today, get our brains cooking as we get ready for some really great conversations throughout the day. I'm seeing new folks rolling in, so I'll just quickly repeat. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, put your name, your pronouns if you choose to share them, your affiliations if you choose to share them. We're so glad to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being here. All right, and it is right at 9:30. We have so much stuff to talk about today, so I'm going to see if Lauren, do you want to go ahead and share the Mentimeter results now? Seeing some familiar names coming into the chat. So exciting. Welcome, Ron. Welcome, Kate. Welcome, Catherine and Shelley. Blowing wind, stuck in motion, moving through. Again, for the folks who are just now tuning in, this is Golden Oak that we're listening to right now, and they'll be playing live next Thursday at our in-person event in Winthrop. See the bridge that it built, that it built. Welcome, Tori. Welcome, Jim. So excited to have all of you here. Starting to see some Mentimeter results for me running in. You all take a quick minute and do that Mentimeter poll that's in the chat. To a question for a future we can build. We can build. We can build. We can build. Lauren, I don't know if you want to drop that Mentimeter link one more time in the chat. I know stuff gets buried quickly.
There we go. Now it's working a little bit.
There we go.
I'm not sure the second slide is working, but that's fine.
Well, that was mostly just for fun anyways. Get us off to a fun, joyful, happy start to the day. All right, I see a few folks still rolling in. Do we want to go ahead and go into our tech notes? All right, great. Lauren, would you mind putting the tech notes slide up, please?
And while we wait, I'm just putting in the chat another shout out for the film screening tomorrow, Seeds of Change film screening. with our very own Mark McBride, Maine Farm to Institution. There's a registration link in the chat right now, Friday at 3:30. Preview the film and just Q&A with the filmmaker and Mark and other folks.
Yes, thanks, Annie. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you with us for the second Maine Food Convergence. We'll start out. Oh, my name's Darcy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a coordinator for the Maine Network of Community Food Councils. Couple quick tech notes. I know most of us have done a million Zoom meetings by now, but just in case you're less familiar, please stay muted unless you're talking. If you want to enable the captions, there's a link for that at the bottom of the screen. Just click show captions. If you step away for a break, just please make sure you're muted. And if you want to turn your video off, that would be nice. If you have any tech questions, you can scroll through the chat and look for Tech Karen. That's Karen Childs doing our tech for us today. Thank you so much, Karen. So appreciative of that. And if you want to see everyone's beautiful faces today and not just mine, you can go to the top corner of your screen and click that little box that changes the view. Click it to gallery mode and you'll be able to see everybody. You want to go to the next slide, please, Lauren? We are going to be recording and taking some screenshots throughout the day. We're going to be recording all the sessions for all our friends that couldn't be here with us today. So if you don't want to be featured on the recording, just go ahead and turn your video off. And then next slide. Thank you. You should have all received an email with a participant packet. If you haven't, no worries. Annie's dropping the link for that in the chat right now. Keep tabs on that packet throughout the day because when we go to our individual sessions, each session has its own Zoom link because we wanted all the sessions leaders to have the ability to do their own breakout rooms if they chose to. So that's why we're doing it like that. But I just want to make sure that you all have access to the Zoom links for the individual sessions and for this main Zoom room that we're in right now. So if you have any trouble with that, again, just post in the chat and let us know and we can reshare the link again. And now I'm going to pass it over to our organizer, Annie, to do a little grounding and a land call to action to get us started this morning.
Thanks, Darcy. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see at least some of your faces. Hopefully we can stop screen share at some points and see more of your faces. Before we continue on today, we just wanted to take a moment to ground ourselves within ourselves and also collectively together. And so I invite you just to feel, to do what feels grounding to you. Just for a few moments, you might want to put your feet on the ground, take off your shoes, close your eyes if that feels okay to you. Sometimes I like to find my center, which is like 3 fingers below my navel and a third of the way into your body. This is like where we find our balance and our intuition, our creativity. And close your eyes and just kind of like feel into that place. And just be aware of your breathing. Put your feet on the ground if you'd like, and just take a few moments to remind yourself of where you are and who you are. And you can keep your eyes closed, your feet on the ground, or whatever feels right to you. As I start us off here a little bit more with a grounding that is embedded with action, perhaps, or at least invitation for action. So the word grounding is really linked to what we're doing as our land call to action. We've done land acknowledgements before, and this felt a little bit more authentic to us as a all-white leadership crew here. So grounding, right? Ground is in that word. It's like about connecting to the earth to find our center, our balance, our well-being. Yet not everyone has equitable access to earth, to land, and it throws the balance and well-being of everyone off. So Malcolm X said, revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. So the state of Maine is like so beautiful, right? And so complex. It's a place so many of us find connection to the earth, feel at home. Yet, as Land in Common points out in this graphic, 17% of Maine is owned by 4 families and companies. 40% is owned by multinational corporations, billionaires, and investment firms. 1% is owned by native tribes, the original stewards, right? And much of this is held in a government trust. And less than 0.1% is owned by non-native people of color, although they make up 4.7% of Maine's population. Those are pretty astounding. At least for me, it like hits me pretty, pretty hard. And also I'm going to put in the chat this graphic because it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but there's a PDF of it now in the chat that you can look more closely at, share. So this is our call to action instead of our land acknowledgement, but it's kind of all in one. We're just throwing out some suggestions for if you feel compelled to act towards land justice in Maine. So there's a few things. And a shout out to Ethan Miller from Land in Common for helping me pull this together. Thank you, Ethan. And last minute. So one thing you could consider is that if you or anyone you know have land or a house that is ready to be redistributed, there's a few options. You can contact the Wabanaki Commission to return land directly to Wabanaki tribes. Especially if you're a white person, we'd recommend contacting Land in Common because they work together with the Wabanaki Commission with First Light Learning Journey. And they're a good white staff to start that conversation with. And these organizations, they collaborate, so contacting any of them works. And I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat. This is the Wabanaki Commission First Light Learning Journey, and then to explore a gift of land or housing, Land in Common is in the chat already. Another offering is to consider regular payments to Indigenous communities. So a little background on that is that settlers signed a treaty in 1678, the Treaty of Casco, saying they will be paying corn to Indigenous tribes whose land they stole. But this treaty was broken the first day after it was signed, and it just never really happened. So settlers have not been paying their corn. So another offering is to consider as an individual or as an organization, those of us who are white could build relationships or continue building relationships with Indigenous communities to explore these regular payments. So a couple of examples of this are there's been individuals and organizations making payments to Bomazeen Land Trust, and I'm going to put Bomazeen in the chat. And then there's some conservation organizations working with Wabanaki Commission to build a Wabanaki Self-Determination Fund, and we'll be hearing a lot more about that over the next year or so. But it looks like they're also having some conversations with organizations about making regular payments. So that link is in the chat for exploring that. And then the other thing is to show up in support of Wabanaki sovereignty at the legislature level. It's really made a huge difference. People from across the state, across sectors, organizations, across cultures showing up in support. It's made a bigger difference than anybody really thought it would. So I'm going to put a link in the chat to 2 organizations that you can keep an eye out for guidance on how to take action. So with that, just hopefully, who knows what will happen, but those are all suggestions. So please take it if you like. And If you want more information, you can reach out to me for links if you missed them. And I'm going to pass it to Elise Hartill from Maine Youth for Climate Justice and MCAN, Maine Climate Action Now, to keep us going.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for taking us through that land call to action. Hi, everyone. My name is Elise. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns, and I'm happy to be here with you all. So today, we're so glad that we're all in community together, and we're asking this community, the Convergence community, to adopt and hold each other accountable to a set of ways of being while we're together. So these were adopted from the Merry Meeting Food Council. And if tensions arise for any reason during the convergence, we ask everyone to look back at these ways of being, and they're also linked in your welcome packet, to hold yourself and others too. So I'm going to go through them. So you are in the right place. Identify and lift up each other's contributions. Everyone has value. Assume best intentions. Ponder what you hear and feel before you speak. Be sensitive to differences in communication styles. If you share often, take time to listen. If you haven't contributed today, consider sharing. If you disagree, focus on the idea, not on the person. We are here to affect change together. Examine your own assumptions and perceptions. It's okay to say no, and assume and honor confidentiality. Can I get a thumbs up to show your agreement to these ways of being? Awesome. Are there any thoughts or questions? All right, I will pass it over to Tanya.
Thanks, Elise. Hello, everyone. Really happy to be with you all here today. My name is Tanya Swain. I work with Maine Food Strategy. We're a network partner in the Maine Food Convergence Project. The Convergence Project is hosted by 7 network organizations, each working on different food system issues with overlapping priorities. We think about the Maine Food Convergence Project as a space where people with different perspectives come together to help each other see issues and opportunities in new ways. We strive to work with people across sectors and experiences to develop deeper relationships and greater trust so that we can co-create an equitable and thriving food system in Maine. Next slide, please. The Convergence started with 5 groups, now 7 that we call network partner organizations. We'll share more information on these groups in just a minute. We came together to develop a statewide event that would bring people across sectors together to share information on issues related to Maine's food system. In 2020, our first 5 network partners collaborated with community food councils in Maine to organize regional dialogues across the state. In these dialogues, people working in communities shared their issues and aspirations. Their input informed the content for a 2021 Convergence event. As you might expect, some of the themes that came out of the dialogues were interest in building the local food economy, food security, connections between food and climate, and impacts of all of these areas on justice and equity. Everyone remembers 2020 and COVID. Instead of the in-person event that we had started planning, the Convergence evolved into a month-long series of virtual discussions. Eventually, more than 300 facilitators and participants took part. And over the course of 4 weeks, we discussed tough issues, shared stories, and explored parts of our food system that most need collective action. It was a really great event with a lot of great people sharing their experiences. Next slide, please. The priorities that developed from that first Convergence event continue to inform the Convergence project. This slide highlights 2 areas of collaboration that have developed since the first event. One is a food processing work group that meets monthly. Some of you on the call are involved with that group. People from many different sectors join these calls to explore areas where they can work together to strengthen processing infrastructure in Maine. Last year, some of the participants in the work group developed the Maine Marinara project, which is a project a lot of people are pretty excited about. It connects Maine farms, a Maine processor, Maine schools to supply a Maine-made pasta sauce to some school districts in the state. More information on both the work group and the Marinara project, I believe, are going to be posted in the chat. And the second area of work highlighted on this slide is the Advisory Council. This year, we brought together a group of folks that bring many different experiences with the food system to the Convergence project, and they help to advise the content for this year's event. And you're going to have the opportunity to meet some of these folks over the course of today and next week's session on Thursday, the 25th. Next slide, please. So now we're in 2023, and the Convergence project continues to work towards connecting people to find our shared goals, the first step to building collective power. Finding common goals also relies on relationships, as I'm sure most of you know, and a lot of slowed down, thoughtful time is needed to build relationships that last. We've tried to apply this to the planning for the Convergence, and we hope it applies to some of the experiences you have during this year's event. And now I'm going to hand off the slides to Lauren Olson, our project communications manager.
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, so we have quite a wonderful group of network partners. Some of them you'll meet in sessions. Some of them are going to be support people for today. They're all here representing their different organizations. We have Darcy Cook from Maine Network of Community Food Councils, Rebecca Shane from the Maine Gleaning Network. We have Elise Hartel from Maine Youth for Climate Justice and Maine Climate Action Now. Just heard from Tanya, the Maine Food Strategy. Anna Corson, our newest network partner from Full Plates, Full Potential. And then we have Maine Farm to Institution. We were working with Steph Cesario DiBiase, and we're working on filling her shoes for that position. You heard from Annie, who's a events and outreach coordinator for the Maine Food Convergence project team. I'm Lauren Olson, and I'm the communications manager. And we have Elena Peters joining us, USM Food Studies intern. So quite a wonderful group of people with us. And then Annie's going to talk about another group of wonderful people, the Advisory Council.
Thanks, Lauren. So this year, we recognize, and as you can see our faces, we are currently an all white, all women led project, and there's diversity within us, within that, all white, all women. However, obviously we realize that we want to build relationships with folks who are more impacted than us from Maine's food inequities. And so we piloted an advisory council this past many months, comprised of folks with backgrounds who have historically been underrepresented in Maine's food system. But even more, as importantly, who really have these nuggets of wisdom about processes that help impacted people feel more safe, more welcomed. And also folks who have great abilities to spark innovation that support equity, and who have been acting collectively on these ideas. So you see up there the list of folks who were on our pilot advisory council: Sass, Sophia, Bo, Olivia, Juan, Set, Ben, Flor, Khadija, Kado, Rose, and Karen Spiller joined us as an advisor to the advisory council. And if you're here today and want to give a wave, that'd be great. There's going to be more folks joining us at the in-person event from the advisory council, some of whom will be sharing their stories a little bit in the opening panel. And we hope that you can come and make it next week on Thursday and hear these stories. It's been a super pleasure getting to know everyone and sharing our stories, ideas, laughing, and just feeling connected with this crew. It's been like an honor for me, for real. And we hope it's just the start of an ever growing and changing advisory council or leadership council, whatever it evolves into. So thank you for being part of this planning team this year, advisory council members. And we hope a lot of you or all of you can stay on in the future. So with that said, the other piece, can folks hear me okay? I just saw something in the chat. Okay, I think it's okay. So the other part about building this convergence community is everyone here, you all and beyond. So really the convergence community where it's everybody from across Maine, across sectors, across generations, various backgrounds, particularly those of us who are impacted by systemic inequities. We're really trying to reach out to have involved. Like, as I said, those are the folks who have the most expertise in what's needed to what we need to do. So we invite you to join, if you haven't already, this Kumu map that we set up from the last convergence. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Where'd it go? Here it is. I'm gonna put the link in the chat to the map. You can opt in using that link, and then you can see, as you can see in this visual, you go in there, you set up your profile, and you connect to all other people on the map who you know, and it shows all the different connections. It also shows like what skills are out there being offered, what skills are needed, contact information. So if you see somebody on the screen who you want to connect to more deeply, this is one way to do it. Another way is to check out the registration list. So I'm going to put that in the chat for folks joining us today and on Thursday. This is the contact info. So, do your thing, contact away, network away, build deeper connections. That's why we are here. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Becca Shane, and she's going to take it away.
Thanks, Annie. Do you want to talk about our sponsors real quick first?
Oh yeah, I'm talking about sponsors. Thank you. Just kidding, me again. So another layer of our convergence community is the folks who support us and are sponsoring this event and next week's event. Sewell Foundation and Quimby have been just crucial in allowing us to build our foundation, staff structure, all these things throughout the year for the whole project. Maine Course by Sodexo has been our lead sponsor for this go round, and so we're very grateful. And then there's just like so many others that you can see up on here, including some in-kind sponsors like the Diggers Co-op and Saga Heart Photography, who will both be at the event next Thursday, working their little butts off. And so we're just super grateful for all of you who have stepped up here. And now I'm going to pass it back to Becca.
Thanks, Annie. So now we're at the 2023 event. So exciting. The purpose of this three-part event is really to build community across the state in this work that we all obviously care so much about, and to create and advance collaboration and collective action wherever possible, and maybe finding new ways to do that. It is our hope that this will happen through exploring how shifts in the food system can advance social and racial equity while also increasing climate resilience. Through facilitated conversations centering the voices of those who have experienced inequities, and through connection, deepening relationships, exploring collaboration, and celebrating one each other. The themes of the 2023 Convergence really came through in the selection and design process of the sessions, as well as some of the more collective and collaborative pieces of the event that we're creating. Three main themes will be present throughout these conversations. These themes were developed as a vessel to hold really the feedback and the hopes and the challenges and the goals that we received from you all, the Convergence community, from the 2021 event, as well as through survey responses leading up to this event. The first theme, addressing access to food, water, and land for everyone, while really centering the lived experiences of those most directly impacted by systemic inequities. Second, a focus on the communities and economies of the food system, from growers to harvesters and to all of us as eaters. And third, supporting a culture of well-being. So taking a critical look at how we can change practices, narratives, and the way in which we support each other. Now I'm going to hand it off to our newest network partner. We're very excited to have Anna Corson from Full Plates, Full Potential.
Thanks so much, Becca. And good morning, everyone. I'm Anna Corson. I am the Policy and Program Director with Full Plates, and we are just thrilled to be the newest network partner of the Convergence. And we did join at the 11th hour, so I just want to give a huge shout out to all of the other network partners and the Advisory Council for just planning this incredible day for all of you. So today we are going to be really just welcoming everyone back to this community. And as you just heard, sharing a lot of the background and context around the Convergence project, where it all started. In a little while, we'll be talking about how we will organize for collective action. So after the two breakout sessions this morning and in the afternoon, we'll be really coming away with lots of ideas for how we can take action moving forward. So we'll have some instructions on how that will work. We're very excited about the keynote speaker who will be talking a little bit later this morning, Angela Okafor from the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Populations. And then we'll jump into the morning sessions. After that, we'll come back and do some report outs. We'll take a break for lunch. Then we'll head into afternoon sessions and report out from those. And then we'll jump right into organizing for collective action. And then we'll close out. And the full agenda is in your participant packet that was emailed out this morning. So it should be right at the top of your inbox. And then Annie's also linking to it in the chat. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Darcy, who's going to prompt us for a brief breakout session.
Rookie move. I forgot to unmute myself. Thanks, Anna. Now that you've heard a little bit about us and the project, we want to give you all a quick opportunity to introduce yourself to some of the other good folks that are here with us today. So we're going to do a breakout room. It's just for 5 minutes. So this is a little quickie. And we're going to do our names and our pronouns and affiliations if you want to share those. And then we'd like to ask you all, invite you all to reflect on the prompt below about complex reciprocity. We think this is a vital element in being part of a network or of a network of networks. To start, before we go into rooms, I want to just sort of clarify, like when we say network, that's a loose term. It really to us just means the folks you collaborate with for your work, or in your day-to-day life, the people in your home, in your community, any group of folks that you feel interconnected with. And if you like this kind of network resource, you can find more in the links that are provided in the chat. This particular slide came from an organization called Network Weaver, which has a ton of really great network information. So the sort of prompting questions we want to send you all off with are, what have you done with ease or minimal effort that was extremely helpful to someone in your network? And what have you received from someone in your network that helped you to move forward? Exploring that idea of complex reciprocity. Annie and Lauren, are we ready to jump into our breakout groups?
Yep. And we're going to do it for 5 minutes. Just a little shorter than we intended. I don't think our MC is back yet, so I'll welcome people back. Welcome back, folks. We're waiting for our MC to jump in from breakout groups too. Here we go. I see some smiles in your faces. Glad you had some time to connect. There you go, Doug.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope everybody got a chance to see some new faces, maybe some familiar faces, and say hi to some folks. I'm going to turn it over to Annie, who's going to talk about organizing for collective action throughout this project. Annie.
Thank you. All right, so I just put a link in the chat to this. We're calling it our collective action mural. Thanks to Jonah and Sewell Foundation, we're able to use this this app, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to share my screen and just give a quick tutorial on how to use it. And we're inviting everybody to jump in there today. So if you click on the link, I think a screen will come up briefly where you can put your actual name in instead of like, you know, something like flamingo or whatever. So I'm going to zoom out, right? And you can see this full mural. So what we're doing here today is we want to gather just all the ideas that you have for how we can work more collaboratively across the state, across organizations, all those things. So this is the place to just like download all of your ideas. What you can do is zoom in to one of the boxes. And if you have an idea, we're going to focus on the what throughout the day. And if you have ideas for what effort or efforts would benefit from multi-organization collaboration, whether they're already existing or just ideas that you have for new things, you can go and double click on one of the blue sticky notes and write in your idea. So for example, we have this cross-state processing infrastructure work group, right? And it's cross states, cross sector. We've been meeting for a year and we want more collaboration, right? More deep collaboration. So I'm going to put that in here and then you can just name the problem, like not enough processing infrastructure across the state and need more collaboration to share, share the tools. And then if you want to put the who in there, you can, but don't worry about it because that's what we're going to come together around at the end of the day. So you can add notes, and at the bottom, if you run out of sticky notes, there's sticky notes everywhere on the side. You can zoom in even more to do the who's because they're kind of small. And so, yeah, just play with this, throw any ideas out there, and we'll come back at the end of the day to look at it together and then get into breakout groups. I'm hoping that makes sense and that it's easy enough to use. If you're having trouble with it, then we'll be around at lunchtime and we can assist with the technological aspect of it. If anybody has any quick questions, feel free to just speak up right now. I'm going to stop. I see some people are in there, so that's great.
Hi, Annie. I don't really, this is Mohammed, by the way. Hi, everyone. I don't have no question or comments, but I really apologize for network error. I just joined it the last minute when the breakout group, and I haven't had the chance to share my experience with my colleagues. And I will request if you could send it to me, the notes and the final discussion. And from here, if I have any question, I will add it. Thank you.
That's great. Absolutely, Mohammed. We'll do that for everybody. We'll send a summary out for folks. Great. And again, if folks want to stay during the lunch break to give us your ideas to add to the mural, we can do that, no problem. So that's all I've got for the instructions around that. And I'm going to pass it back to Darcy.
All right, thanks, Annie. I am hella excited to be able to introduce our keynote speaker this morning. I've been an Angela Okafor fan for many years. So a little bit about her. Angela Okafor Esq, MBA, is the Director of Outreach and Community Engagement for the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Populations of Maine. She is a mother of three, an attorney, an entrepreneur, a community leader and builder, and a Nigerian immigrant. She owns Okafor Law Practices, which focuses on immigration law, and the Tropical Taste and Styles International Market, and Angela's Closet in Bangor. Months after becoming an American citizen in 2019, Angela's first vote was for herself in an election she won to become the first person of color and first immigrant to serve on the Bangor City Council. Angela serves on the board of the Maine Multicultural Center. She serves on the President's 2025 Commission on Excellence and Equity at the University of Maine, the Advisory Committee of the Racial Justice Fund, the Governor's Maine Economic Recovery Commission, and she was an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. Angela is a marquee Who's Who 22-23 listee, the Girl Scouts Pearl of Wisdom Juliet honoree for 2022, the first Community Solidarity Award recipient from Food and Medicine in 2022, the 2021 Trailblazer Award recipient from the PCHC Dentistry Residency Program, a Maine Biz Woman to Watch in 2020, the Maine Women's Fund honoree in 2020, and the Empower the Immigrant Woman Trailblazer honoree in 2018. So as you can tell from all that, she is a very busy woman. So we're incredibly grateful that she has carved out a little bit of time to join us this morning as our keynote speaker. Without further ado, Angela, take it away.
Thank you, Darcy. Good morning, everybody. So I would like to start with an acknowledgement. Acknowledging, I know, Annie, you've done that, but I like to acknowledge the Wabanaki people on whose land we are on. And I like to also do something a little extra different by acknowledging the multi-generational Black people who have lived in Maine, because you will find out later as I'm moving on, because the labor that built this country, where we live, Maine, was built on their backs. And I also like to acknowledge the fact that I'm an immigrant woman. And despite being an immigrant woman, I am grateful that I'm not an asylum seeker, neither am I a refugee, seeking refugee applicant here in America, in Maine. I am grateful that I came to America in search of greener pastures. I like to acknowledge these things because these groups, because most times it's always Black people, but among Black people, there are different categories. But the basic thing is that we are all still the same, just that our history determines the need and support that we all need. So that being said, there's a quote I like to start with. Nelson Mandela said, "Our economic approach to food and its distribution reflects our basic moral values." Like I said, I am a Nigerian immigrant, and I came here in 2007. Shortly after the pandemic started, life threw a hard one at me. I closed my business because I have 3 children. And I had won the election, of course, so my name was all over the place. There were so many things. I was rocking the place with Darcy and all of that, pushing things, the transportation, we were just rocking it. And the next thing I heard after 16 years of marriage was, I wanted a divorce. And if you kick against it, I'm going to ruin your public reputation. So he wanted me to sign it quietly. This was a husband of how many years we came together, had children together, all of a sudden trying to use my public success against me. I wanted to mention this because after that, what followed it was now a series of so many other things. The next thing I knew, I became very sick because I was scared. I was ashamed that I don't have family, you know. There were people, of course, against me, things I was pushing. So it was, I was going to be this devil. So I was, the public shame, of course, too. Our culture, which was, of course, a big factor. So I became sick, apparently developed internal bleeding, ulcer acute. In a matter of 5 days, I fainted at my house, rushed to the hospital. And the next thing I knew was I was dropped from health insurance, not just being dropped from health insurance while I was sick in and out of the hospital. I got kicked out of everything. after making me close my business in the middle of a health pandemic. So I ended up having to be catered for by the community for a while until I was able to apply for food stamp. So from being the wife of a millionaire and being able to afford for things for myself, I ended up being on food stamp with 3 children for 1 year. What did that teach me? I ended up, there was a time because I was in and out of the hospital for a year, pretty much. And there was a time I went to the hospital to see my PC, primary care. And what they offered, of course, they ask you, do you need food and all of that. A couple, I think 2 of my kids were with me. When I received the package that they gave, I was very, of course, appreciative because, most times we really don't appreciate the little things until we find ourselves in situations. So when I got those, I was excited, of course, and I think they gave me 2 packs because I had, I think 2 of my kids or so. And when I got home, what did I see in there? To be honest with you, most of the things there, I couldn't eat them because that is not what I'm used to. I appreciated the gesture of food, but the importance of that culturally appropriate food was an issue for me. There was one, I think during Thanksgiving, that 2020, I think it was Darcy that brought some food stuff to my house. And I remember a gigantic turkey in it. I was happy and excited. I don't have family here, but it was like, who am I going to celebrate with? But at the same time, there were some of the things there that I couldn't eat, nor my kids, because we are not used to eating them. So there is another quote that I would like to, I don't remember who said that, but he said that food is national security. Food is economy. Food is employment. Food is energy. Food is history. Food is everything. And I would dare to add by myself, food is personal safety. I say this because food was used as a weapon against me, for me to be, according to one of his sisters, if I couldn't take care of the kids, I will hand them over to their dad. That is the part so many of us, we don't think about. Yes, food security, land security, and justice, it affects mostly the BIPOC community, but I feel that one of the issues that is not always spoken about is that food can be weaponized against people, and mostly against women and children, and more importantly, even against BIPOC women and children. So as this went on, while I was on food stamp, I also experienced that criticism, that eyes looking at you, you're well dressed, but you're using food stamp, right? You must be abusing it or you must be lying. But I knew what I was going through. I was ashamed even having to use that. So for me, the opportunity to be here, I kept thinking, what should I share? What should I talk about that you have never heard? And it occurred to me that I have that story, which is the fact that land and food, especially culturally appropriate food, is something that should be paramount in almost everything we do. Because when you go to the hospital, you are given medications, but how do medications work without food? How do you heal without proper food? How do you enjoy food? How do you identify with who you are? There's another quote I came across, interesting. It says that agriculture is our wisest pursuit because it will, in the end, contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness. Actually, was said by Thomas Jefferson. How interesting. So what do we invest in agriculture? A lot of people growing up, you hear people attribute people who are farmers to being poor. But these are the basic, the foundation of our economy, the structure of our country, of our world. How do we respect the soil that this food are brought from? How do we respect the soil when we don't even attribute to the land, to the soil, its own due? Culture is imbibed in the land. There is a lot of cultural things that have to go with the way land is nurtured, how it's maintained, how land is appropriated. But sadly, that is not what is happening in America. Land is given to the wealthiest, to the whites, taken away from the indigenous population who feed this land, who nurture this land, who feed us through this land. Land is taken from the Black people who worked hard and free and enslaved to build the culture of this country. However, Darcy knows me, I'm not a big fan of whining or crying over spilt milk. So I would say, what are we willing to do? What do we want for our country, for our community, for ourselves, for our brothers, our wives, our sisters, our friends? We have the opportunity to take back what is ours. We have the opportunity to establish what is right. But how can we do that? Not just by sitting pretty in our offices and our homes and in our beautiful air-conditioned cars. We can do those by standing up, speaking up, not letting our voices be swallowed, sharing our stories. There is a very big power in sharing stories, lived experiences. Yes, people believe data, but then data has nothing on real experiences by real and existing people. We can change these policies by doing a lot of partnerships. We can change these policies by finding ourselves, finding the way to the State House and lobbying and protesting and carrying placards if we have to, and speaking to our representatives. We can change these dynamics by finding local people who support our mission to run for offices. And when they run, we do not just let them, once they win, we say, oh, we finished. No. When candidates win election is when the work even starts. I remember being on council when I was there, I didn't know anything. I didn't know my left from my right. I just knew that what was happening, I didn't like it. And I knew I wanted to change it. How was I going to change it? I had no clue. It was people like Darcy reaching out, sharing information, encouraging me, showing up. Because I stutter, I have stage fright too, even though people don't believe that. But when I look in the crowd, I see Darcy carrying her placard, giving me a smile. Things like that is always very encouraging. So, but most times we feel like, oh, we've elected people, so we stand by the side and bash them what they don't do. You do not know the struggles they go through. When it's time for issues to be discussed, we need to show up and support these elected officials. We need to fight for them. We need to support them and let them see that we're supporting them. That is how policies can be changed. We need, when we have ideas, we share them. We don't just say, oh, I'll tell that and I'll just stop. No, 2 voices is better than 1 voice. 1 tree doesn't make a forest. What are we willing to give? What are we willing to do? Actions speak louder than voice. We don't pick and choose when to show up. We don't pick and choose what to say. We don't pick and choose who to say it to. We say it consistently to everybody and everyone at every time. We show up, we support the communities that we are soliciting for. Yesterday was the first ever Maine Black Voices Advocacy Day. How many of us showed up? How do we know what these Black people require? That is how we form alliance. That is how we hear what do these people need to help us push for policies that will benefit them. Because the truth is, until all of us are successful, none of us is truly successful. It's not a personal thing. Because, you know, struggles, strife, temptation, they don't knock on doors. They don't pick and choose who they go to. Just like they came to me. I didn't see that happening, but it did. And it happened so bad for me. It could be anyone. but what you are willing to do, how far you are willing to go to make sure that issues are being discussed, that things that need to be done are being done, and that the people who need to hear, who need to be part of it, who need to be on the table are on the table. And not just that they are on the table, but that their voices are actually being listened and implemented. And when issues and ideas that they bring are implemented, it is important that we give them the credit that they are due. These are things, these are ways we uplift each other. These are ways we uplift the voices that need to be uplifted. These are ways we progress as a community together, not one leading and other following. No, nobody is supposed to lead. Nobody is supposed to follow. We all are supposed to be working hand in hand. So the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Population, I don't know how many of you who know about us, but we are a child of statute. We were established by LD 777. And we are mandated by statute to go into the systems that do exist and to look into disparities that do exist and find ways to fix these disparities. How do we do this? We do this by primarily networking and partnering and listening to the communities that are marginalized and encouraging them to lead. When we listen to them, we process what we get through research and collection of data, and then our policy department works with the legislature directly to find policies to push. That is why when I say networking, partnerships, a single tree doesn't make a forest. We are stronger when we stand together, when we have each other's back. We have the rights, the statutory rights or duty to advise the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So our partnership could be in the form of, this is what we are experiencing. This is what our community wants done. How can we push the policy? And when it's time to show up, we show up in mass. That is how things work. We reach out to our state, our federal, national representatives. That is how policies, that is how true change happens. We support minority BIPOC farmers. There is one happening in the Bantu farming co-op in Lewiston. That is a beautiful thing. I live down here in Bengal. Things like that, are they happening here? To what extent? Racial equity is basic to the structure and success of every community, because every single individual has something unique that they always bring to the table. There is this quote too that I love to say. I've said it so many times, yet I've not memorized the name of the person that said it, but I'll still share anyway. It's an artist. So he said that every painter dips their brush deep into their soul and paints the picture of their own truths. I can only paint my truths. I cannot paint your truths. Only you can paint your truths. So when I paint my own truths, you paint your own truths, another person paints their own truths. Imagine what the collection of these different beautiful pictures of different truths will mean. That is what a thriving community needs. Supporting each other, uplifting each other, celebrating each other, showing up for each other. How many city council meetings do we attend? How many times? So many things happening don't seem to concern us. So if it doesn't concern me, I don't show up. So if it doesn't concern me, if it concerns you, you don't show up. There is also this story that I think Darcy may have heard me say so many times. So in a beautiful village hall, there was a fire that erupted. And I said, oh, it's not burning my house, so I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna stay beautiful and, mind my business. Darcy says, oh no, it's, someone else is gonna put it off. It's not affecting me, so I'm just gonna go to sleep. And he says, well, my house is very far away. It's not going to affect my house. Somebody else is going to do that. Guess what? Nobody's name is somebody. And nobody did it. And guess what happened? Every house, the beautiful mansion, everyone got affected by this lie. So most times we feel like this doesn't bother me. This is not my business. So I mind my business. But what we forget to know that what touches the head, the mouth, affects the nose. What affects the nose affects the ear. What affects me affects you in the long run or short run. So when I'm able to support you, it's easy for me to come out to, when I'm able to support you, it's easy for you to support me in return. I will give a little story too about how that works. Like I said, during my ordeal, I fainted at the courthouse and I was driven to the hospital. Then I found out that my estranged husband dropped me from health insurance in the middle of my health struggles and in the middle of the health pandemic. Guess what? I don't have a family, nothing. It was community members that stood up for me. I don't know how they did that. I just know that they organized themselves, they raised money, they were taking turns driving me back and forth hospital. People were taking turns taking care of my children. Why? I didn't even know, but you know, so many of them told me because you would give, because you give to us, because you stood up for us. So you see how I give you, you give me. That is how we all thrive. Whoever told me I was going to be in that situation, I didn't know. I wanted to step down from my position. My city hall manager refused. She told me, take the time you need if you need to. That is how communities support each other. Someone I didn't know reached out and paid for my business rent for 6 months, asking nothing in return. He told me, I love what you're doing. We want to make sure you're here. That is the power of community. But how do we build this community? How do we bank on this community if we pick and choose when to give and when not to give, when to speak up and when not to speak up, who to support and who not to support? And to say, maybe it's not me, maybe someone else will, and then nobody does. And it affects all of us. So I'm going to round up because I saw a reminder, but it's such an honor to be here. And in my capacity, both my personal capacity and in my official capacity, I'm always available. Right now, I'm pretty much healthy. Yes, I'm working through some things, but I'm healthy enough to, to stand up if we have to stand up, to march if we need to march, to support, to give my ideas, my thoughts, to give connections if I have to, because only together can we surmount our struggles. Thank you. And I'm open to question if there is any.
Woo. Thank you so much, Angela. That was amazing. Can we give Angela some love in the chat? If you want to come off mute and give her a clap, a thank you, whatever you want to say. And we do have a couple minutes if anyone has a question or comment, something that, thoughts that came up during Angela's talk. And I can't see hands raised if people are raising hands. So
Jim, I believe somebody named Jim just had a hand raised. Just speak up. Did I see a hand raised? Yeah.
That was a clapping emoji, but I just met Angela in person yesterday. If we cross paths in some other meetings, some of the work she's been doing, it's very powerful work, and I'm just so grateful. And there's so many great people in the state that are doing great work that, we're building this network and we're making connections and we keep meeting new ones. And that's the power of this convergence and the power of food, the power of food to bring us together. So, I mean, since I got called out, I'll just say that and I'll express my gratitude for Angela and the fact that we got to connect. So thank you, Angela, for your words.
There's a whole lot in the chat, Angela, coming towards you. The paint your own truth saying is beautiful. Thanks for sharing your personal stories. Tying it back, we had a, the network mode of complex reciprocity you touched on a lot there. It was Jack, not Jim, who raised their hand. Go ahead, Jack.
Unmute. Angela, great to see you. Really appreciated your talk. And I just want to jump off the, the stigma that happens to folks on food stamps. And I think, it's awful. It's really awful. And I think in some ways the United States is a bit of an outlier on how much it really, the culture drives down on people, that it's their fault when it's really the system. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Thank you. So for me, it was, and then of course I read some online. So, when you're on food stamp, you're not supposed to look good. You're not supposed to, when you're on food stamp, you're not supposed to have a good phone. You must be lazy. You're not supposed to be buying seafood. You're not supposed to be buying certain things when you're on food stamp. I'm someone who doesn't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. So you never see me buying those things. But I have children who have been raised like my children wouldn't eat fish, chicken. They wouldn't eat turkey. Their father, like I said, we are very well to do. I struggled in, it's a little more complicated because there was economic abuse too. But these are children who have been raised eating lobster, eating shrimp, eating, what is the other one? I don't even remember the name. I don't even eat it. But that's about the only protein they will eat. My daughter, when she eats egg, she throws it up. She has this sensitivity. So what protein do I feed my children that they will eat? These children are already going through a lot of stress, with their parents struggling. The least you want to give them is forcing them to eat something they don't like to eat. So when when someone sees me buying seafood and then I come online, I'm seeing people, all these people on food stamp, they're buying seafood, expensive seafood that it's heart-wrenching. The clothing that I wear are not like I bought them yesterday. I've had clothes before I came into this situation. So I'm not supposed to wear them just so I will look wretched and justify the fact that I'm using food stamp. So I must be lazy for me to be using food stamp that I cannot. I'm an able-bodied woman without anybody knowing what is going on internally. Of course, I wasn't looking like what I was going through. So there has to be some form of fraud or lies for me to be, to have to be using food stamp. So it's something that really touched deep into me. I saw that, because there is always a difference between when you hear stories or you read stories and when you actually live that story. So it is something that through my ordeal, one of the things, everything I've done in life has been motivated by my personal experiences. I have been working with several people to, last year I worked with Representative Laura Supika to pass the economic abuse law. The title is an act to remedy the long-term effects of economic abuse by a spouse. We are looking into hopefully recognizing emotional abuse as within the frames of domestic abuse for purposes of protection from abuse. So that is what I'm saying, like you experience something, a lot of times you must not be motivated by positive actions. Things that you go through can be a motivation for you to jump into action. I don't believe in, I talk about things, yes, but talking it doesn't change things. What can I do to change it? No matter how small. At least I've started that conversation, even though we couldn't get it into this session, but obviously we are working towards next session. How can we make it better? So that is what I hope and I want for us to be doing when it comes to food, because like I said, food was about being weaponized to take my children from me. So when we're talking about existence, success, and people being able to give their best to survive, to like food is everything. How do you walk on an empty stomach? How can you be creative in an empty stomach? It's not possible. How can you even try, heal from sickness in an empty stomach without being able to get nutritious food? And I feel, because for me, before I applied for Maine for food stamp, it was a struggle too for me. Being an immigrant, I don't want anything that is going to preclude me from getting my parents here. So it was the Trump era just before he got out. So I was scared. It took me a long, long time to be able to do that. So that is why when we talk about certain immigration laws and policies, so many of these things go to the root of humanity. How do we support these things? Like I said, I was a citizen already, but I was scared of applying. What if he banned me from ever being able to have my parents visit, or I'm here all by myself. So that was a fear that I had until I exhausted the little savings that I had. The friends that were doing food chain for me, sending me food and all of that for my children. Everybody was struggling. How far was I willing and able to stretch them? Of course, I didn't have a choice, and I resorted to that. So when we talk about what can we do, those experiences have fueled me towards what can I do to make things better? How can I change the situation? What spurred me into this emotional abuse thing? I was in court, and the judge said, I remember he was fighting my protection from abuse application. And the judge said, I still remember that very vividly. People can be doing very terrible things. We know they are terrible, but they are not under the definition by law. So we can't do anything. That was when it hit me. I can do something. I can share my story. I can push. I can talk to my legislators. And that is what I'm doing. And that is what every one of us has the power to do. Sorry, I can talk for Africa. So I'm going to shut my mouth right now.
No, sorry. No, sorry. There is a question in the chat too, from Anna. How can we all support the important work that the Permanent Commission is doing?
Thank you, Anna. That is very, very important, because we are new too. And like I said so many times, one tree doesn't make a forest. Partnership. We are mandated by law actually to host a listening session at least once a year. Last year, it happened in Bengal. This year, we are hoping to host 2. The first one we are planning, we haven't decided on the date. Annie has connected me to a couple of people that have been, that are going to be helpful, that are being helpful. It will be held in Lewiston. I will share the information as they come out, because these public inquiries bring out the marginalized groups. You hear from them. What are they struggling with? What do they need? How can we come in? Where can we come in? You learn too. There is nothing, in Nigeria, we say when story is repeated, it starts to lose its value or something. I'm trying to translate in English here. When I hear a story, when I tell a story to Darcy, for example, she hears it. When she translates it to Annie, of course, she's probably going to add 1 or 2 things in her own understanding, which may not be exactly what I meant. When Annie translates it to Jack, obviously it's being watered down. So when you are able to hear that directly from the sources, it makes a huge more impact versus when you go to data. Because the truth is, we all know that the data that the government keeps is really not inclusive. We all know that. So when you go to these people, we are hoping to be rotating this. After the one for Lewiston, we are hoping before the end of the year to host another one in a rural area where we'll go to the tribal and people. So it's something that you can also want to, come and hear. Last year, we heard a lot about, for example, an indigenous lady who married a white guy, struggling with her community accepting her and her children, and also struggling with DHHS because she is indigenous. So it's you see all these nuances and intersectionalities, and we are all we say that 2 good heads are better than 1. when we hear these things, one person, the idea can spot, come up in one person's mind as to how to help this person, how to support this person, or what we can push through this person's story. Something also we are working on, because we know that the marginalized communities, there's been a lot of distrust between them and the government. That is something also the Permanent Commission is working on. We have a website, which we are also on Facebook. You can follow us. That way you know what policies we are pushing for. You can help us when it comes to testifying. You can support us too, especially, when it comes to testifying. Last year, we worked on the Crown Act, which includes discrimination based on hair texture. One of our proudest achievements so far is the racial impact statement. It's been passed into law, and it is a law that mandates every bill being processed to go through the lenses of racial equity. How will it affect racial people if this is passed? So that is something we can also leverage on. Like I said, we are working on data governance for us to get the ability to protect identifying information from people. So when we come for this event, one of the things we are trying to do is to ensure that people do not record, that we create a safe space. But at the same time, we want people who can do things, who can move, change things, to also hear these stories from the horse's mouths.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Angela. Everybody wants to put any more love in the chat for Angela. So wonderful to have you. And you touched on so many things that we're going to be talking about over the next few days. So that was excellent. We are going to get ready for our morning sessions. Lauren, do you want to share the morning session slide so people know what their options are? We've got, you can choose any of these 4. And again, in your participant packets, each one of these sessions has its own Zoom link. So if somebody wouldn't mind dropping the participant packet into the chat one more time for anybody who might not have it. So yeah, session A, eating behind bars, food justice in Maine's carceral system. Session B, migrant farm workers, milk with dignity, and the Hannaford campaign. Session 3, advancing narrative strategically and collectively. And session D, why can't we eat more local Maine food? Answer, not enough processing. Let's fix it. They all sound amazing. We are going to be recording the sessions too, unless anyone specifically requests not to, but I don't believe that's been a request yet. So if you're like me and you want to go to all of them, don't worry. You can check out the ones that you didn't get to attend. And the session started at 11, so it's 52 right now. So we got a couple minutes, take a little break, stretch it out. And then when you're ready, click on the link for the individual session that you're going to go to. Did I miss anything, Annie? I don't think so.
We just have a quote to disperse on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have a little quote to kind of keep our brains cooking while we take a quick break. This is from Why Local and Equitable, Inequitable are Not Synonymous. But if a local food movement is a space where the people who have been most marginalized are represented, centered, and in positions of leadership guiding the movement, if the movement tries to come up with creative alternative structures to fight injustice in the food system, if it grapples with the tension between standing in solidarity with the struggles of farmers around the world and working at this more tractable scale, if it builds solidarity with other localities trying to do the same work, if it grapples with and turns towards the complexity of historical forces of injustice and seeks to build redistribution into its model, then local food movements can become some of the most exciting and hopeful spaces for the future of the food system. The choice is ours. All right, we'll see you all in the breakout rooms in just a few minutes.
And if anybody is confused, just stay on in this main room and we will shepherd you to the right place. Otherwise, enjoy your sessions, and we'll see you back here around 12:30.
Thank you. So as people are starting to trickle back in, I'm wondering if some courageous souls want to share a little something, a takeaway from your session, any big ideas that came up, issues, questions, thoughts.
And I'll just pipe in as a reminder to take a look at the mural that I've just put in the chat too. And I'll put in there again, and add any ideas too that you have thought of during the session or you think of while people are sharing out. Add them in there. I see some folks have been in there already adding stuff, so that's great.
And I'll also say again that I might not see raised hands. So please, if you've got a Zoom hand raised, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and chime right in. We are not formal here. And for folks who are just now coming in, we're just asking for some reflections from your morning session, something that came up for you that you'd like to share out with the larger group.
And I certainly encourage session facilitators to pipe in too, to get the conversation going.
Well, a thing I can share from our session, Shane Rogers was helping lead our session about collective communications and approaching the way that we communicate inside our organizations or our groups or our networks, but also outside of them differently, and thinking of how we can do it in solidarity with one another. And by doing that, really advance our collective narratives forward together, like the bigger, deeper narratives that underlie our work, like, you know, the idea that everyone should have enough fresh, healthy, culturally appropriate food to eat, the idea that there should be no stigma attached to needing to use SNAP or any other benefits that help you get the food that you need for your body. Does anybody else from the collective narrative group feel like jumping in and talking about some of the things we discussed?
I'll share quickly, Darcy. Just really great tools shared in that session. And I loved one member in that group shared that it made them feel less alone. And I really like the idea that sometimes it's scary to feel like you're putting your voice out into the world, maybe in contradiction to something, maybe, but the idea that if we have a collective narrative, if we're working from the same tools, that maybe it's not quite as scary to put those words out there. I love that idea. So thank you to that person for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing Annie in the chat saying the discussion about changing the narrative all over the place crossed over a bit into the Eating Behind Bars session. Wonder if anyone from the Eating Behind Bars session wants to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the things you all discussed.
I'm happy to kick it off for that session, which was just incredible and so inspiring. And one piece that we were talking about is, you know, Maine's doing a great job of making sure that people who are incarcerated have access to really high quality food and that they're a part of that process of creating the food. But then when they're released from incarceration, that food insecurity is very real and that that's a huge issue. So just thinking about how we can connect formerly incarcerated people and their families to programs, resources. I mean, there's a lot of barriers to accessing food assistance. So, you know, that continues to be a problem, not just in Maine, but all over the country. And so that's another that was a big part of the conversation, and definitely an opportunity for collective action.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Anna. And I'm hoping that somebody on this call will put that into the Organizing for Collective Action document, whatever, I don't know what we're calling it exactly, the thing. Let's see, what were the other groups? Migrant farm workers and the Milk with Dignity program and the Hannaford campaign. Does anybody from that group want to chime in and share something?
Yeah, we had a small but mighty crew. And we were talking, I think something that came up was like, how do we get involved? So Migrant Justice and Milk with Dignity campaign is pressuring Hannafords to join the campaign. And something, they have some really cool toolkits on their website of like, you can adopt Hannafords near you. So it's like really easy and ways to get involved that don't seem overwhelming. And we talked a little bit about purchasing power too, but I think for this campaign, it's all about visibility and showing support and getting out there, whether that's physically being there. We have a big march on June 24th in Portland, but also even social media. And I really love their adopting a Hannaford. So it's somewhere that could be really local to you. If there's a Hannaford's in your community, showing up, you know, talking to the managers. It doesn't have to be like a picket line. It doesn't have to be a march. It could be simple as having a conversation, and knowing that, you know, the folks who run the store aren't the ones making these big decisions, but just showing your support and educating more consumers about, you know, how milk is getting from the farm to the store and what that looks like. But it was, they had some great videos that are really gut-wrenching. So it's just it's great to see them really show their support and all the work they're doing across New England. Yeah.
Nice. Is there anybody else from that group that wants to share anything out? And I think I'm not alone in saying that I'd love to have more information about the march on June 24th for anyone who is interested in showing up. Okay. And then we have our session D, why can't we eat more local Maine food? Not enough processing, let's fix it. Somebody from that group want to jump in and talk a little bit about what you all discussed?
Oh dear, I think I think I'm probably up. Chris is not here to do it. So we had a great discussion. There was so much interesting, so many people in the room with so much knowledge about this topic. We talked about so many things. We talked about some of the real challenges. We talked about the really good work that's going on around trying to fund processing as a critical piece of the food puzzle. Some benchmarks from Vermont and Massachusetts and what they've done. The bill that's actually being heard right now in, I think, appropriations, trying to have a food farms and forestry fund that would be through the state and that would sort of provide the kinds of patient flexible capital that we need for this really tricky part of the food system. We talked about the leadership of driving the solutions to the problems that we identify, and who should be leading that work, and that that the people who are most affected should be leading the work. We talked about gosh, what else did we talk about? Somebody else help me out. I see you processing people in the room. Amy, help me out.
So I just got back to my desk sort of in the middle of it, but what you captured a lot. We talked about just the difficulty of processing, and people with examples going back to the 50s talked about how unsustainable it is without a combined public-private sector sort of joint effort, and without streamlining coordination, and the difficulty of operating as an entrepreneur in that ecosystem without the benefit of a coordinated system to help us as a state, as part of a region, as well as individually businesses map and navigate that map to profitability and to like a resilient food supply chain, and also to participate in the traded sector with domestic exports and even beyond, to the extent that that's I know that raises environmental sustainability issues, but it does support a lot of jobs. We talked about how Maine has grown from, well, maybe I talked about it in my quick overview. We've gone from 40 value-added food companies in 2015, when we really started researching the potential for Maine's food industry, to like 250 in 2022. So just really illustrating sort of like the amount of growth that can happen, and career opportunities that can happen, and farmland being preserved. And now I'm sort of getting broader, but that was the gist of what we also talked about in our small breakout in that session.
Nice. Y'all talked about a lot. That's awesome.
we had big thinkers, and we had people with a lot of experience in different pieces, from like commerce and getting businesses with like starting buying clubs and co-ops and running farms and losing them and regaining them, and really just like these challenges are perennial.
Heck yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that there was some real like deep and very logistical thinking going on in that group. That's very exciting. We got a couple more minutes if other folks want to share out. Elsewise, we could probably break for lunch a little early. I'm sure folks are getting hungry. I will go ahead and share what our afternoon sessions are today, so you can be thinking on what you might want to check out for an afternoon session. We have session A is Maine's Ethnic Buffet. Session B is Building a Food System Resilience Policy Agenda in Maine. And session C is Soulful Soils, a Resilient Market Garden. All, again, very good choices. So, unless anybody has some last minute words, I think we can go ahead and break for lunch. We're going to return by 1:30, and we'll come back into this main room before we break off into the separate Zooms, just like we did this morning. Annie or somebody, I believe, is going to put the mural into the chat again. So, we've heard all these fantastic ideas and thoughts. Let's capture them. So please put things into that collective action mural.
And If anybody wants to
Go ahead.
add a mural, but they're having technical difficulties or on the phone or whatever, and you can't add to it, then I'll stick around and you can let me know which one to put on there.
All right, fantastic. Have a wonderful lunch, everybody, and we'll see you at 1:30.
All right, Darcy, I'm going to stop talking now.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So we still got a couple people trickling in, so I'll talk a little slow. I hope everyone had a great afternoon session, had some great conversations, and we'd love to, same as we did this morning, share out about them so that the folks who weren't a part of your conversation can learn a little bit more. We also recorded all the sessions, so we'll be sharing those out at a later date. But I'm just gonna do like we did earlier and kind of go session by session. So session A was Maine's ethnic buffet. Do some folks from that group want to hop on and share a little bit about the discussion you all had?
Catherine, I just saw you come off a mute. Is that to talk?
Oh, I didn't mean to. Sorry, no.
Looking for a hearty soul from Maine's ethnic buffet to share a little bit of the conversation with the rest of us.
I know Doug was in there. Doug. You're on mute, Doug.
I think we had a really great conversation. And I think a hard conversation that really needs to be had. And I think I think Khadijah really centered it. I wanted to thank Rose for facilitating and Mohammed for getting on. And, but there's a lot of challenges that we have. And it's going to take all of us, I think, to address them. I think the big takeaway was we need land tenure for people of color to grow their own food on their own terms that's culturally appropriate. And how we do that is going to take like all of us. I mean, sure, there's been some great successes like Liberation Farms and New Roots Cooperative Farm in Lewiston. But what can we do if it's bending policy or finding more money or more white farmers willing to give up their land or share their land? I think was one of the biggest takeaways for me from that conversation. But perhaps Rose could also, anybody who was part of that breakout session, please share your thoughts about what you heard.
It's fine if we don't feel like talking about it anymore right now. I know that was a long conversation. I would love to ask though, please, Doug, put what you just shared, if it's not already in the collective action board, into the collective action board so that so we can come away from this event with some action steps to move forward on these big issues. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was in there and this might cross over, but the need for halal meat processing was also mentioned. And I thought that was a really important topic that might be relevant to some more of the conversations we have at the in-person convergence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, let's make sure this is getting into our collective action board for sure.
I just put it
If no,
in the notes under the processing work group one. about halal.
nice. Thank you. So if nobody else from the ethnic buffet group wants to share, we'll go ahead and move to session B, building a food system resilience policy agenda in Maine. Does anybody from that group want to come off mute and share out a little bit about your conversation?
That was intentional that time. It was super interesting because I was very familiar with the Ending Hunger by 2030 policy plan, but not so much with the other two that they presented. One was the climate change plan and the other one was the economic development plan. And I was just struck by how much overlap there is between them. And for my own work, I'm going to look at them all and sort of try to grasp where the overlaps are and if there are conflicts, and just kind of try to understand how all these big picture plans might fit together, because there are folks who are going to be working on implementing them each. And I think it's important to know, how well they how much they coincide, and how whether they're complementary and so forth. So I'm going to do some of that myself, and I don't know if there's anybody else tasked with that, but I think it would be an interesting project to kind of look at them together.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I love that, Catherine. Thank you. Does anybody else from the policy agenda group want to share?
I just wanted to note, Darcy, in response to Catherine's question, the folks that put that session together, when we were preparing to do that, we actually looked at the 3 plans and started to call out all the recommendations that we thought related to food systems. So we have a document with that, and it's sort of housed in the policy work group that Ken mentioned, but I'm hoping that at some point we'll be able to share that out, and that could be a starting place for what you were talking about. So more to come on that.
Great. I was thinking about, trying to join some of those meetings, because I'm certainly very interested in that. So hopefully you'll see me.
Nice. Thank you, Tanya. And thank you, Catherine. Does anybody else from the policy agenda session want to share? Okay. Then let's move on to session 3, Soulful Soils, with Hannah.
Okay. I'm going to turn my video off. I'm on my computer now. And I'm going to stop video. Yeah, so I just shared on my business plan and my work on my own farm, Soulful Soils. It's more of a market garden, as it will be about 2.5 acres in production as the years go on. And it was just really great to have a space to talk about what I want to bring to Windham, Maine is where I'm located, and my broader community, and kind of just connecting with some people that I know and haven't seen in a while, or just getting a little bit more resources, and just kind of getting constructive feedback on my overall plan. So it was really great, and I appreciate the space to do so.
Nice. Thanks, Hannah. Does anybody else from the Soulful Soils group want to share anything out? I was in that group, and I will put a quick plug in, because I was reminded that there's going to be a seed and seedling swap at the in-person day next week. So if you're coming to the in-person day, and you've got some extra, especially cucumber seedlings, I'm going to shamelessly vie for those because I want to grow as many cucumbers as I can this year and make a bunch of pickles. So if you got them, I'm in the market. Sure, other folks have other seedling needs and wants as well. So bring whatever extras you got down with you. And then I'm going to just kind of open it up broadly now and just see, you know, if folks, maybe you weren't in a session, but you had questions, specific questions you wanted to ask of the people that were there. I'm just going to pause and let it sit for a minute and see if anybody has anything coming up that they'd like to share. All right, it's okay if we don't as well. I know it's been a long day. If you have a contact that you want to share as well, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. And I'm going to pass it over to Annie for some collective action conversation. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And Karen, Tech, can you make Becca the co-host in case we need to spotlight anymore? Thank you. Okay. Hi again, everybody. So now's the time when we hopefully get some good collective work moving along. So I've done this like a million times, but I'm going to put it again in the chat for everybody. This collective action mural is now in the chat. The process here is that we're going to get in there. There's about 10 boxes filled, which is cool. It's exciting for like the who's, right? So there's like 10 areas that people have said this needs more collective action on across the state. You'll see them all in there. If you're on the phone, I'm just gonna quickly go run through what got put on there. So the processing infrastructure, policy in general, gleaning, school nutrition, marine foodscape utilization, thriving wage, getting healthy local food into prisons and jails, farm worker rights, strategic collective communications, coordinating new arrivals, food support, land access, and I think that is it. So I want to give you all a couple minutes to look at that or to think about what else you might want to add in there. And then we're going to get into breakout groups according to these areas. So you'll see big black circles. Those are the breakout group numbers. And you're going to determine on your own which breakout group to go to. The first thing we need to do, though, is to get in there and put your name in one of those little black boxes of the group that you want to go into. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do all of those things. If you are joining us by phone, don't worry about it yet. Just stay, when we get into breakout groups, you can stay in the main room and we'll manually put you in rooms. And Karen, you can prepare to make those breakout rooms so people self-select where they're going to go, and there's 11.
And we're just going to number them, correct? We're not going to name them?
Yeah, you don't have to name them.
Perfect.
Hopefully we'll be able to figure this out. This is a test. We've never quite done this before, but I think we can do it. Okay, so Karen's going to make these breakout groups, and they're going to have just numbers on them. The numbers are going to correspond to each of the areas. So if you want to do gleaning, you'll see in the mural says breakout number 3. So you're going to choose breakout group number 3 and join that one. If you want to talk about policy with Catherine, you're in there. You choose breakout group number 2. You can see in the big round black circle near that box. If you're completely lost or joining by phone, just stay on in the main room and we will help you find your way. So directions for when you are in your breakout groups. This today, with the, we have less people here today than we're going to have at the in-person event. And our job today is to really just talk about the what, fill in like what's the problem kind of thing, and then the who. So the what, the who, and you'll see in those boxes, there's like prompts to think about for the who. So who is already in leadership in this area or can take leadership. That's a really big one. Think about if it can be you or somebody you know. Who's already working on this, fill in those boxes. Who has expertise and needs to be a part of this, particularly folks who are impacted by this issue, who are not already involved, write their names in there. And any of you, like who wants to collaborate, if that's any of you in there, put your name down there. And then, whatever discussion you can have, definitely take it, write down some notes in the purple stickies down below. And then we're going to take all that we come up with today. And Elena, thank you, Elena, our intern, is going to write them all on actual sticky notes and bring them to the in-person convergence, where we will add more to it and then talk about what are the very next steps to organize around this. So that'll happen at the in-person convergence. And today, after we all come back, and then also at the in-person, we're going to take like a quick poll to see, all right, which one of these do people want the convergence to take on to incubate, like a work group or whatever it is, and to take some leadership in it to get it moving. So just consider that, like what makes the most sense for the convergence to incubate. And then we're hoping too that other networks and organizations take on, the bulk of it and can keep it moving. So does that make sense? We're just going to focus on the what and the who, write any notes, and then we'll keep it moving at the in-person convergence. Any questions before we get into our groups? Okay, so in terms of timing, we are going to bring people back from the breakout groups around 4:05. So you'll have like 25 minutes or so, 25 minutes. All right. Karen, let her rip. And y'all will just choose your own breakout groups. All right. Hi, everybody. Hope that was fruitful. Saw a lot of notes in that mural board, so that's exciting. So we'll just take 1 minute. Are there any nuggets that you pondered in your group that anybody wants to share?
Minimum wage should at least be $21, $22 an hour across the board nationwide, and that's not even enough for sure. And there's no solution.
Thanks, Evie. Yeah, we've been talking about having a thriving wage cross-sector work group for a while now. Yeah. Any other nuggets? I saw a lot of people in the land access one. Any nuggets from there? No nuggets. No worries. Okay. So the last thing to wrap things up here is we want to just get like a little temperature check here. Thank you, Lauren. So take a look at the full mural board again, if you don't mind, just to see the big picture. of what's up there, and think about what you would want the Convergence project to incubate or support. If it's already going, could support it, or we could incubate something new. So a few things to consider: what's most urgent to act on now? What would be most impactful? And what efforts have lots of energy, but is lacking leadership? So those are the things to consider. And then I'll put that in the chat, but this is going to disappear in a second. And then I want you to do one more quick Mentimeter before we wrap up here. Go into that Mentimeter poll if you don't mind, and you'll see the prompt up there, but basically it just asks you that question: what effort do you want the Convergence project to incubate or support? And just write the titles that are on the mural. I think you can put in 2 answers. I'm not sure, can't remember, but do what you want there. Put 1, put 2, however many you can, and let us know what you think makes the most sense. And Lauren, you can stop your share and I will screen share the results. Okay. So people are in there, which is great. I'm going to share my screen and show you all what's coming up. So thriving wage for all and for farmers in particular are coming up. Policy, land access, processing, convening. Great. Like that. Land access is a big one. Looks like several people are putting that in. Strategic communication is coming up. Thriving wage and land access are the 2 biggest ones coming up right now. Some are in yellow. It's a little hard to read, but new arrival support and more thriving wage. Okay, give you all a couple more minutes. So land access again, thriving wage again, and policy seems to be the 3rd in line here. Culturally preferred food is in there now too. New arrival support a couple times. Farm worker rights is now in here. Healthy food, healthy local food and institutions. Okay. So it looks like what's coming on top is thriving wage, land access, and policy. Keep going in there if you want. I can take a look later and look at like the actual answers, and we'll bring that back to the in-person event. So I think I will stop my share. But I will also take a screenshot of the results and share it out with everybody who registered, so they'll be able to see that. Let me go back, see what we're missing here. Okay, great. Lauren, can you share your slide again, please? And slide 28. Okay. So I can't see anybody. There we go. All right. So an attempt to like actually move things forward, not just keep talking, which is a really important part of a network, is figure out how to act on what we talk about. We've already set 2 dates for follow-up, like next step meetings. So after the in-person convergence will be next week, we'll continue these discussions about what we can act on collectively. And then like, what's the very next step we'll talk about next week on Thursday. And then there's 2 options to join in like a next steps meeting. And that's like next steps for all of these ideas. It's not just one, but it's like kind of deciding, all right, what are we going to act on? And we can get into breakout groups and talk about it more deeply. So June 13th and June 14th are the two options. You can just come to one. That's fine. If you want to come to both, that's fine too. But really just one is what we're looking for. And you have to register for these. So I'm going to put that in the chat right now. So if you already know that you want to be in on one of these meetings, please go ahead and register. We'll remind everybody again via email and next week on Thursday. And I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it back to Darcy. Thanks for still being here, hanging in to the very end, everybody. Super grateful. And also, I just want to say how we're like really getting this thing, you know, everybody on the call, it was like pretty smooth, even though it was like somewhat complicated transitions today. So I really appreciate everybody just like really paying attention and making it a smooth day. So with that, Darcy, you want to take us away?
Yeah, can everybody hear me all right? I had technical issues for a moment. So and just Annie, so you know, I've lost my notes. So can somebody please go to the next slide for me? I'm gonna just wing it. I'm going on the fly here. So bear with me. Let's see. So yes, the film screening is tomorrow from 3:30 to 5. And Annie just put the link in the chat for us. And I'm really excited about this film. I've been excited to see it for a while. So I hope you all will join us. The filmmaker will be there with us to answer some questions as well. Anything else I want to share on that before we move on? Oh, not hearing anything. So can we go to the next slide? All right. And in closing, we will be in person next Thursday in Winthrop, Maine at the YMCA camp. If you have any questions about directions or childcare, anything, reach out to us. We want this to be absolutely as low barrier as possible for anybody that wants to be a part of it. So please let us know if you got anything that will help you be there with us. We're going to have food trucks, Falafel Mafia, Mr. Gourmet Sausage, and the Isukin Co-op food truck. Very excited about those. Those are included in the cost of registration, so don't worry about bringing extra cash for the food truck. We're going to have Golden Oak playing live during the middle of the day. We're going to have a mural, so come with some artistic thoughts prepared to share with the gang. We're going to have a bunch of great more workshops, a speaker panel in the morning featuring some of the folks from our advisory council. So we really hope to see all of you next Thursday. And we want to leave you with a nice inspirational quote for the afternoon. So this comes from Wendell Berry. We have lived our lives by the assumption that what was good for us would be good for the world. We have been wrong. We must change our lives so that it will be possible to live by the contrary assumption that what is good for the world will be good for us. And that requires that we make the effort to know the world and to learn what is good for it. That's all from me. Does anybody have another closing thought you want to share before we say goodbye for the day? Oh, yeah. And one more thank you to all our sponsors. We love you. We appreciate you. And we're glad that so many of you are not just sponsors in terms of donations, but also here with us today and being a part of the conversation that doesn't go unnoticed. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Mwah. We love you. Have a wonderful day, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow at Seeds of Change and then next Thursday as well.
And feel free to come off mute and say goodbye.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thank you. This has been fabulous.
Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. See you Thursday. See you in a week. And if anybody wants to stay on just for anything, feel free to pipe up and take yourself off mute. All right. It's just us now. And